The wind howled through the ruins like a wounded beast, carrying with it the scent of ash and iron. The ground was scorched black, the bones of a human settlement jutting up from the earth like the ribs of a corpse. Between the shattered walls moved the Varkane, hunters born of shadow and silence, their eyes glowing faintly amber in the gloom. They came not to scavenge, but to avenge. At their head walked Theros, alpha of the Bloodfawn pack, his armor of woven sinew and metal shifting softly with each movement. The fur along his neck bristled as he knelt beside a broken drone, its human insignia still visible through the soot. The machine's casing was splattered with dried blood, not human but Varkane. His nostrils flared as he inhaled. It was the scent of kin and of loss. "They died running," murmured Garan, the pack's lead tracker, crouching beside the alpha. His scarred muzzle twisted into a snarl. "Scouts should not have fled. They should have fought." "They were cub guardians," Theros replied, his voice a low growl rumbling through the air. "Their duty was to protect, not to die gloriously. Someone broke our circle," Garan. "The human struck where we were weakest." He rose to his full height, towering above the others, and cast his gaze toward the forest ridge. Beyond it, the fading glow of fire marked where the humans had fallen back. The pack's claws scraped lightly against the metal beneath them, an unconscious rhythm of restrained violence. The silence that followed was thick with expectation. Every Varkane there could taste vengeance on the wind. The Varkane were not beasts, though they might have appeared so to human eyes. Their world, Rethkar, had shaped them into predators, their civilization bound not by laws but by code. Honor was their creed, vengeance their balance. When blood was spilled unjustly, it demanded blood in return. And now, the balance was broken. 2 cubs had gone missing after the ambush that killed their scouts. To the Varkane, that was more than a wound, it was a desecration. "Follow the trail," Theros ordered, his voice deep and measured. "Find where they took our young." Garen's nostrils flared as he lowered his head to the earth, tracing invisible paths through scent alone. His claws pressed into the soil. "Southeast," he said after a long pause. "One human wounded, dragging something small. 2 sets of cub prints. They're alive for now." The alpha gave a single nod. "Move." They moved as one, 6 towering figures of muscle and fur weaving between the charred remains of buildings. The faint glow of distant stars filtered through the smoke, catching on their bone blades. The air pulsed with restrained fury. Theros led them with the calm precision of one who had killed too often to find joy in it. Each step was deliberate, each breath measured. As they passed through what had once been a human habitation dome, Theros paused before a shattered window. Inside, a child's drawing hung half-burned on the wall, a crude picture of a man and a smaller figure, holding hands beneath a yellow sun. For a moment, his gaze lingered on it, unreadable. Then he turned away. "Why do you look at their markings?" Garan asked, catching the glance. "They are liars, builders of cages." "Because," Theros said softly, "even liars remember their dead." No one spoke after that. The pack moved deeper into the forest, where the metallic tang of human blood mingled with the scent of resin and damp earth. The underbrush whispered beneath their feet. Insects fled their passage. Hours passed in grim silence. The tracks grew fresher. The humans had not gone far. Theros could sense it, a single heartbeat echoing faintly at the edge of his awareness, steady but fading. His kind felt life differently. To him, it was a pulse in the air, a vibration that hummed against instinct. At last, they reached the ridge. The air was colder here, thinner. Smoke drifted upward from the remains of a crashed transport, its hull torn open like the belly of a dying animal. The scent of medicine clung to the wreckage. Antiseptic, synthetic, unmistakably human. "Here," Garan whispered, pointing to a trail of small paw prints leading away from the crash. "They went this way." Theros crouched beside the prints, brushing one lightly with a claw. The size, the depth, the spacing, yes, cubs. His throat tightened for an instant before he mastered himself. "They are his," he murmured. "Mine." The others looked at him, not in surprise, but in shared grief. The missing cubs were of the Alpha's own bloodline. That made this hunt sacred. The trail led further down into the valley, where the forest thickened. Night deepened. The moon, a pale shard against the void, illuminated their path with silver light. The sound of the world quieted until only their breathing and the distant hiss of burning wreckage remained. At the edge of a stream, they found a strange sight. 2 empty ration packs. A human field blanket. Blood droplets on the stones. The prints of small claws beside them, and human boot marks. "He still lives," Garan said, tasting the air. "He bleeds, but he moves." Theros's claws flexed. "A wounded prey still bites. Be cautious." The pack slowed their pace, shifting into a silent formation. Every motion was measured, fluid, rehearsed through generations of hunts. Above, the sky flickered with faint aurora, painting their fur in shifting hues of green and violet. As they moved, Garan whispered again, "Alpha, when we find him, do we kill him quick?" The roast did not answer at once. His gaze was fixed on the distant glow of a small fire flickering between the trees. His senses tightened around it, feeling that single human heartbeat once more, faint, exhausted, but still stubbornly alive. "No," the roast said at last. "We kill him when the balance demands it, not before." The others accepted the command without question. They descended the slope like ghosts, the firelight growing brighter with every silent step. The scent of cooked roots and smoke reached their noses, mingling with something unexpected, warmth, not fear. When they finally halted at the edge of the clearing, the world seemed to hold its breath. Through the shadows, they saw the source of the fire, a lone human soldier lying beside it, body scarred, armor stripped away. His rifle rested on the ground beside him, empty. His chest rose and fell slowly, rhythmically, alive but barely. And there, curled against his side, were 2 small Varkane cubs. The roast stared, his claws frozen mid-motion. For a long moment, the alpha of the blood-fawn pack could neither move nor speak. The forest whispered around them. The pack waited for his command. But no sound came from his throat, only a low, uncertain growl that trembled like the wind itself. The vengeance they had come to deliver wavered, suspended between instinct and something older, deeper. Theros's eyes narrowed. His heartbeat slowed. "Hold," he said softly. The word was not a command of rage, but of wonder, the first spark of doubt in a creature who had never questioned what justice meant. The fire crackled. The cubs stirred. And in that fragile moment, vengeance began to shift into something else entirely. The pack fanned out along the tree-line, their bodies merging with the darkness as naturally as breath. The roast crouched low, one clawed hand pressing against the earth to still his pulse. The scent of his cubs was undeniable, faint, but warm and alive. Every fiber of his being screamed to rush forward, to snatch them back from the human's grasp, yet instinct and command held him motionless. Rage without control was weakness, and weakness had no place in an alpha. The fire in the clearing hissed softly as greenwood burned, sending up curls of smoke that glowed orange against the night. The human stirred, his face turned toward the flames, revealing a gaunt jaw lined with exhaustion and a week's growth of stubble. His armor, once polished gray, was dented and scorched. The nameplate on his chest caught the firelight for an instant. Hail. Beneath it, his pulse beat faintly at the hollow of his throat, a fragile rhythm surrounded by death. The roast watched as one of the cubs shifted in its sleep, a small paw rising to press against the human's collarbone. The gesture was innocent, trusting. The alpha's throat tightened, the sound he made low and raw, barely a breath. Garan caught it and misread it. "Now, Alpha," he whispered, baring his teeth. "We strike?" "He cannot fight." Silence. The roast growled, not turning. The sound carried a weight that crushed further protest. The younger warriors waited, restless energy rippling through their muscles. They were killers bred for precision. But this stillness, this hesitation, confused them. To find a human sleeping beside the pack's stolen blood defied every story they'd ever believed. Garen's amber eyes glinted in the firelight as he leaned close. "He holds them as trophies," he hissed. "He mocks us." Theros's gaze remained fixed on the scene before him. "Then why are they alive?" The question hung in the cold air. No one answered. Minutes passed like hours. The forest around them shifted with the wind. Branches creaked, leaves rustled. An owl called in the distance, but inside the circle of firelight, everything was unnaturally calm. The human's breathing was steady, the cub's even softer. One of them whimpered in its sleep, and the man's arm instinctively tightened, a quiet, protective reflex. Theros moved closer, silent as a shadow. His eyes caught the edge of something metallic beside the man's pack, a jagged scrap of hull plating with words carved into its surface, scratched by hand and stained by blood. He leaned just close enough to read. "They're safe. Don't shoot." The letters were crude, shaky, as if written with trembling fingers. The Alpha studied them for a long time. "Alpha," Garen urged again, voice strained. "Your cubs lie in the arms of prey. End this." Theros turned his head slightly. His gaze silenced the hunter once more. He could smell the truth on the air, no fear from the cubs, no blood spilled by the human's hand. Only exhaustion, and something else he hadn't expected: compassion. He rose to his full height, moving into the edge of the firelight. The sudden silhouette drew a reaction. The human stirred, eyes snapping open, the flicker of the flames reflecting in their pale green depths. His hand darted toward the rifle lying nearby, but he didn't lift it. Instead, he froze as he saw the cubs clinging to him, one tiny muzzle pressed beneath his chin. "Easy," the man said quietly, voice rough from thirst. "They're just sleeping." His words weren't a plea. They were steady, measured, as if he were talking to something wild that might bolt or strike. Theros took one slow step forward. "You steal blood, not yours," he said, his words a low growl shaped into the rhythm of broken human speech. "Why?" The man blinked, surprise flickering across his face. His gaze moved from one towering silhouette to another before settling on the Alpha. "I found them," he said, his tone steady despite the tremor in his hand. "After the fight. They were hurt. He hesitated, searching for the right word. Couldn't leave them." A ripple of disbelief spread through the pack. Garen's claws dug into the soil. "Lies," he spat. "Humans kill. They don't keep alive." Theros studied the man's eyes, pale, weary, but clear. He could smell deceit when it touched the air. There was none here. "You mended them," he murmured, almost to himself. Marcus Hale's mouth tightened. "Did what I could. One of them had a broken leg. I used what supplies I had left." His voice roughened. "They stopped crying after that." No one moved. The forest seemed to lean in closer to listen. The fire snapped, sending sparks into the cold air. "Why?" Theros asked again, quieter this time. Marcus exhaled, glancing down at the cubs still asleep against him. "Because they were kids," he said simply. "Doesn't matter what species. You don't leave kids to die." The Alpha's claws flexed against his palm, the motion slow, uncertain. The simplicity of the answer unnerved him more than any weapon could have. Garen took a step forward, teeth bared. "He killed our scouts. He is enemy. Let me tear out his throat." Theros turned sharply, and for an instant the full force of his authority burned through the air. "Enough." The younger warrior froze, hackles raised but silent. Theros faced the human again, his massive shadow stretching over the firelight. "You say you found them. Where were their guardians?" "Dead," Marcus replied without hesitation. "I buried them." His eyes flicked upward. "Didn't know they were yours. Didn't know anything about your kind, really. Just that they were hurt." Theros's chest rose and fell with slow, deliberate breaths. He remembered his brother's body after the last battle, the scorched fur, the smell of plasma and death. He had sworn that day that no human hand would ever touch his blood again. And yet here lay one, scarred, bleeding, barely clinging to life, guarding what he loved most. The alpha's gaze fell to the cubs. Their fur was clean, the bandages neat. The younger one gave a soft yip and shifted closer to Marcus, nuzzling under his arm. The sight made something old and iron-hard inside Theros begin to bend. "Alpha," Garan whispered again, his voice desperate now. "You can't. Be silent," Theros said. His tone was calm, but the power beneath it silenced the forest itself. He knelt then, lowering his massive frame until his eyes met Marcus's. The human didn't flinch. His breathing was shallow, his energy nearly spent, yet there was no fear in him, only fatigue and a strange calm acceptance. "You should hate me," Theros said. "I am what killed your kind." Marcus gave a tired half-smile. "Maybe I should, but I'm too damn tired to hate anyone right now." Theros stared at him for a long time. Then, without a word, he rose and turned to his pack. "No one touches him," he said. Shock rippled through them like thunder. Garen's mouth opened in protest, but the alpha's next words silenced him completely. "We do not kill what shelters our blood." He turned back once more, looking down at the human and the sleeping cubs. The fire's light painted strange patterns across his face, making his golden eyes seem almost human. Marcus blinked, confusion flickering briefly before his exhaustion overtook him again. His eyelids drooped, and within moments he was asleep once more, the cubs nestled safely against him. Theros stood unmoving, the weight Mom. The first rays of dawn slipped through the canopy, painting the forest floor in streaks of muted gold. The fire had burned low, reduced to faint embers that pulsed like a slowing heartbeat. A thin mist coiled between the trees, damp and silent. Theros stood where he had remained all night, unmoving, a sentinel bound by questions he did not yet understand. The human stirred. Marcus Hale's eyes fluttered open, pupils narrowing against the light. His first motion was not toward the rifle beside him, but toward the cubs still asleep against his chest. He checked their breathing, his hand moving with quiet precision born of habit and care. Then he noticed the figure standing at the edge of the clearing, tall, silent, watching. His gaze sharpened instantly. "You're still here," Marcus said hoarsely. Theros tilted his head slightly. "You expected otherwise?" The human gave a faint, humorless smile. "Didn't think I'd wake up breathing." He sat up slowly, grimacing as pain flared through his side. The bandage there was dark with dried blood, his movements careful, deliberate. The cubs protested the disturbance with small whines, curling closer. "You bleed," Theros observed, his voice low but steady. "Yet you protect." Marcus looked down at the small shapes pressed against him. "They didn't ask for any of this," he said. "Didn't seem right to make them pay for someone else's war." "War," Theros repeated softly, tasting the word as though it were foreign. "You think this is war?" The human met his gaze. "You kill my people. We kill yours. You call it vengeance, we call it defense. Either way, someone always buries the innocent." A long silence followed, filled only by the whisper of wind through leaves. The alpha's claws flexed slightly against his palms. "You speak of innocence as if you have known it," he said. "But your kind burns worlds." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You think I haven't seen what we've done? I was there when your ships fell on the Demos colony. I watched both sides torch everything because no one wanted to talk." "You were a soldier," Theros said. "It was not a question." "I was," Marcus admitted, "until command decided we were expendable." He gestured toward the crash site beyond the trees. "We were supposed to evacuate civilians. When the attack came, we were abandoned." His tone hardened. "So, yeah, maybe I stopped fighting your war. Maybe I just started surviving." Theros regarded him quietly. His instincts demanded hatred, demanded justice. Yet something in the man's voice, the weariness, the lack of fear, pierced through the armor of belief he had worn for so long. "Survival," Theros murmured. "Your kind speaks that word like prayer." Marcus gave a faint shrug. "It's the only one that ever gets answered." The alpha studied him, the way his shoulders remained squared despite exhaustion, the steady rhythm of his breath. There was strength in him, but not the kind born of domination. It was endurance, a stubborn refusal to surrender even when nothing remained worth saving. The roast stepped closer, the ground trembling faintly under his weight. "You had every reason to kill them," he said, nodding toward the cubs. "They are my blood, my enemy." "I didn't see enemies," Marcus said. "Just two kids crying for someone who never came." He met Theros's gaze again, unflinching. "If you think saving them makes me weak, you're wrong." Theros's eyes narrowed. "No. It makes you dangerous." Marcus frowned. "Dangerous?" "Yes," Theros said. "Because I have seen warriors who kill without thought. But I have never seen one who spares when vengeance is his right. Mercy bends the chain. And a chain bent enough breaks." The human considered that, then shook his head slightly. "Mercy's not weakness. It's just choosing to stop the fire before it burns everything." "Fire does not choose," Theros replied. "It consumes." "Maybe," Marcus said quietly. "But someone has to put it out." The Alpha turned away for a moment, staring toward the rising sun beyond the treeline. Its light gleamed across the scars that marked his armor, every one a memory of a death he'd ordered or avenged. "Your kind took much from us," he said. "You shattered the moons of Rethkar. You slaughtered our packs." Marcus's voice was low. "And yours burned our colonies. Killed children. Tell me, Alpha, at what point does vengeance stop being justice?" The question struck like a blade. Theros did not answer. His ears twitched as one of the cubs stirred, letting out a soft cry that shattered the fragile stillness. He watched Marcus soothe it gently, his large human hand covering the small creature's flank until the whimper faded. Garand emerged from the shadows then, his patience spent. "Alpha," he growled. "Enough of this farce. He lies to save his skin. Let me." "Silence," Theros said without turning. "He is prey." Garand snarled. "He mocks you with soft words. His kind killed your kin. His blood should stain this soil." Theros turned then, eyes blazing gold. "His blood already stains it," he said. "Yet my cubs live. Would you rather they died with him?" The words struck Garand like a physical blow. He lowered his gaze, rage and confusion twisting across his face, but he obeyed. The pack fell silent once more. Theros faced Marcus again. "What will you do now, human?" Marcus looked at the forest around them, the wreckage beyond. "If I can find a signal, maybe someone comes for me," he said. "If not, I keep moving." "You would walk unarmed through our world?" Marcus gave a faint laugh. "Done worse." Theros considered him for a long moment. "You do not fear me." "I do," Marcus admitted. "But fear doesn't decide what I do. It just tells me when to be careful." That answer unsettled the Alpha more than any defiance could have. Fear was natural. Fear was order. But this human carried it differently, not as a chain but as a tool. The cubs shifted again, one of them blinking awake. It blinked up at Theros, small and curious, before making a weak sound, half whine, half question. The Alpha crouched slowly, extending a massive clawed hand. The cub tottered from Marcus's side and nuzzled into his palm. Theros's breath caught. For a heartbeat, the world felt impossibly still. Marcus watched quietly. "Guess they know where they belong," he murmured. "Perhaps," Theros said softly. "Or perhaps they have more sense than we do." The cub's tiny heart beat fast against his hand. In that fragile rhythm, Theros heard something he hadn't known he missed, the sound of life untouched by hate. He looked back at the man who had kept that life breathing. The fire between them had burned out completely, but its warmth lingered in the air, faint and enduring. Theros rose and stepped back. "You have earned no death today," he said. Marcus's brow furrowed. "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "It is not mercy," Theros replied. "It is balance." He turned to his pack, his tone leaving no space for argument. "We leave at dusk. Prepare the cubs." Garand hesitated. "And him?" Theros glanced over his shoulder. "He will find his own way." Marcus leaned back against the ruined log, exhaustion overtaking him. "Yeah," he muttered faintly. That's what humans do. The roast didn't respond. He watched as the man's eyes finally closed, sleep claiming him once more. The alpha lingered for a moment longer, then turned toward the forest. The sun climbed higher, casting the world in harsh light. Somewhere behind him, the faint breath of the human and the steady heartbeat of his cubs echoed together, fragile proof that survival and mercy could, for a brief moment, exist side by side. And thug. The night had grown still when Arvin finally understood what it meant to stand between two worlds. The campfire's glow painted gold across the wolves' sleek fur, and their eyes, sharp, intelligent, and unblinking, reflected the flicker of uncertainty that burned inside him. The alpha stood a few paces away, his immense form radiating calm command. The pack was gathered, tense and waiting, the air thick with the scent of metal, ash, and the faint sweetness of the sleeping cubs nestled near Arvin's chest. The alpha, Kor, took a step forward. The movement drew every gaze. His voice, deep and measured, cut through the silence. "Human," he said, the word carrying neither venom nor warmth. "You carry what is ours." Arvin didn't flinch. He'd expected this confrontation, even welcomed it. "I didn't take them," he said softly, his eyes flicking toward the cubs as they stirred. "They came to me." The words seemed to ripple through the pack. Some growled low, a warning of distrust, but Kor raised a paw, silencing them. "No cub of mine wanders into the arms of prey," he said, his voice edged with disbelief. "They do not know comfort in alien hands." Arvin's lips tightened. They knew fear. "I gave them warmth." Kor's eyes narrowed, but something in his gaze shifted. Doubt, perhaps, or a faint trace of respect. Behind him, the beta wolf, Jarek, stepped forward, his silver fur bristling. "He lies," Jarek snarled. "Humans brought fire to our dens, iron to our woods, poison to our rivers. Why should this one be different?" The accusation struck true, and Arvin didn't deny it. Humanity had broken much, planets, treaties, faith. But this small act was different. "Because I didn't come here to conquer," he said. "I came here to learn. And if I must stand before death to prove it, then so be it." The wolves exchanged looks, their instincts warring with reason. For creatures bred on loyalty and vengeance, mercy was not natural. Yet here was a human speaking of courage, of care, and it fractured the certainty they'd carried into the hunt. Kor approached, close enough that Arvin could feel his breath against his skin. "You would die for them?" Arvin didn't hesitate. Without question. A long silence followed, punctuated only by the soft rustle of wind through alien pines. Then Kor turned his gaze toward the cubs. One of them, a small, golden-furred pup, lifted its head sleepily and gave a weak whimper before pressing closer to Arvin's chest. The gesture, innocent and trusting, broke something unspoken in the alpha's heart. "The cubs choose truth where words fail," Kor said finally, his tone low, weighted. He turned to his pack. "We came for vengeance. We found something else." Jarek bared his fangs. "You would spare him?" "I would test him," Kor replied. "Vengeance teaches only death. Perhaps trust can teach survival." The tension in the clearing thickened. Kor raised his head, addressing Arvin once more. "There is a ridge beyond this forest," he said. "Beyond it lies the old battlefield, where your kind spilled our blood. You will come there at dawn. Alone. If you can stand before that memory and not break, then perhaps the pack will know you as more than an enemy." Arvin nodded slowly. He understood the weight of the invitation. It was no promise of safety, but a trial of spirit. "I'll be there," he said quietly. The alpha turned, motioning to his wolves. "Leave him," he commanded. "Tonight, he is the cub's guardian. Tomorrow, he faces the ghosts." As the pack melted into the shadows, Arvin exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. The forest reclaimed its stillness. The cubs shifted in their sleep, one paw twitching against his chest, and Arvin let his hand rest gently over them. The fire had dimmed to embers, but its warmth lingered, a fragile bridge between two species bound by ancient fear. When dawn broke, the horizon blazed in hues of crimson and gold. Arvin stood at the ridge's edge, the ruins of old machines scattered like bones across the valley below. He could feel the weight of history pressing down, the echoes of screams and steel clashing beneath the soil. Kor and his wolves stood opposite him, silent sentinels of memory. "You see it," Kor said, stepping forward. "The place where we lost everything." Arvin nodded. "I see where we both did." The Alpha regarded him for a long moment. "Do you still believe we can share this world?" "I don't believe," Arvin replied. "I hope. Belief demands proof. Hope just needs a start." The words hung between them, fragile yet powerful. The wind rose, carrying the scent of ash and renewal. Kor lowered his massive head, almost like a bow. "Then start human." Arvin looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, but open. "We already did," he said, glancing back toward the forest where the cubs slept, safe and waiting. For the first time, Kor's lips curled, not in threat, but something close to a smile. He turned to his pack. "Then let the hunt end." The wolves howled, not in rage, but in something older, deeper, like the song of a world remembering peace. Arvin felt it reverberate through his chest, through the ground beneath his boots, through the stars that had guided him across light years. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that vengeance had given way to understanding, and fear had found its match in courage. As the Alpha's howl faded into the dawn, Arvin knew the meaning of his stand. Sometimes, the fiercest battles were not fought with claws or guns, but with the simple, unyielding choice to hold life instead of destroy it. The pack turned back toward the forest. The Alpha paused once, looking over his shoulder. "Walk with us, Arvin," he said. "If the cubs see you as kin, then so shall we." And as the first true light of day touched the ridge, man and wolves descended together, no longer predators and prey, but survivors learning, at last, to share the same sky.